I'm Dennis Anderson along with Julie Zenner, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Thousands of World War II vets who risked their lives in a daring assault were honored this week at home and in Europe on the 75th anniversary of D-Day.
STARBASE has landed in Duluth, an immersive STEM education program that is housed at the Air National Guard Base.
And Cirrus Aircraft names a new CEO. That story and more in the business news.
Stay where you are. Almanac North is next. Hello and welcome once again to Almanac North. Thank you very much for watching. And Julie, warmer weather has moved in with the exception of around the lakeshore, but should be a pretty good weekend.
We certainly have the air conditioner going here in Duluth.
We do in town.
But it's very nice.
It is.
It's
good topics tonight. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Denny, and welcome everyone. This week marked the 75th anniversary of D-Day, the largest seaborne invasion in history. The Allied landing at Normandy in France marked the beginning of the end for Germany in World War II, but it came at a heavy price for those who advanced by sea and air on the Nazi-controlled territory. Joining us to talk more about this momentous event in world history is Scriven, the executive director of the Bong Veterans Heritage Center in Superior. And welcome back on what I imagine it's a busy week for you.
Yeah, it was busy between exhibit installs and a ceremony last night, so I'm just kind of winding down tonight. So,
What were your thoughts as the services unfolded this week commemorating the 75th anniversary of D-Day?
Yeah, for me, I'm just a museum geek. I have no military background. My immediate family's not in the military, and for me, it was interesting going through reading these firsthand accounts of these veterans that went through D-Day. And in particular, we were reading up on our new paratrooper exhibit that I know we'll touch on in a minute, but reading his personal accounts and hearing what he went through in his jump, and then seeing what he did after the fact was really touching to me and made me appreciate more of what I have truly. And you know, I did a speech at Memorial Day this past year as well, and once again, reading firsthand accounts, it really does put things in perspective for you, for somebody like me that's never served in the military. And I'm so much more grateful for what I have personally after reading what they sacrificed for me.
So what is the mission then of the Bong Center?
You know, the 10,000-foot vision of this is we're here to honor and preserve all Northland area veterans. But it's not just the Northland, it's all veterans in the United States as well. We're here to collect all those stories and interpret them for anybody that wants to come in and see them.
Sometimes veterans don't talk about combat duty they may have had. Do you find they open up a little more when they're in a museum and perhaps looking at memorabilia of that era?
All the time. It triggers something in them where they sparks a memory, and then they'll start talking about it. Or, you know, we have a lot of veteran volunteers at the center, so when they sit down and talk with them, it's really impressive that all of a sudden it snaps on them and they start talking with them, and it's just coming out of them all the time. And that's part of the problem, is that a lot of these veterans don't want to talk about what they went through, and then we lose those stories when they don't talk about it or donate items or loan them to museums like ours. And that's really sad, because our job is to get that information out there so people can understand, you know, what they did, so we can be who we are.
Speaking of memorabilia, talk about the D-Day paratrooper exhibit that just went up and the significance to our local area.
Yeah, so we had this idea brought to us by a volunteer about a year and a half ago. He had seen a similar exhibit in a different museum, and we're like, he's like, let's get this D-Day paratrooper hanging inside the center. And it's a full life-size paratrooper modeled after a D-Day veteran from Duluth. When we were doing this, I said the main goal is we have to tell a Northland veteran story. And we found this this veteran, Chester Brooks from Duluth, originally from Minneapolis, but retired and lived most of his life in Duluth. And he was in the 501st, 101st Airborne, jumped June 6th, early morning hours behind enemy lines, and had a really interesting tale. And just when I was talking about his jump, basically what ended up happening is his plane got separated, found the formation again, and then all hell's breaking loose up there. They're getting shot at. The plane banks one direction, it goes another direction, and everybody falls out. Basically falls out of the plane all at once. The only guy that's left is lieutenant, like, what just happened? And Chester, interestingly enough, had a box of TNT between his legs.
Really?
And he jumps out, or falls out, and the chute opens, and he describes it as a textbook jump. The chute opens, he goes vertical, and within his first oscillation, he hits the ground. So that means he was really low, he was going super fast, and he's separated from everybody else. And he describes that silence of just floating there, because he had been surrounded by his comrades, and then all of a sudden he's by himself. And it takes him a few days to find his crew again. Takes about 10 days, and then they spend 3 weeks going around France, getting into skirmishes before they actually go back to England after 3 weeks. And one of the pieces of memorabilia that we got on loan from the family was two photographs, and these will be on display. One is all of the battalion there, everybody right before they jump. The second is Chester. He survived the war. Chester cut out the people that didn't make it, and I saw that yesterday for the first time, and I got emotional over it, because it showed that amount of loss that he had. And his group, his battalion, had 38% casualty rate. It was the highest amongst that group.
Sure.
And so that affected him for the rest of his life. And it was just, it's very important for us to get that out there and tell that.
So are a number of other veterans preserving their stories at the Bong?
We hope so. We have quite a bit in our collection already, but we're still looking for more, because we're losing specifically World War II vets at a very fast rate. It's been said that this was one of probably the last biggest anniversary that we'll have a lot of World War II veterans around. And one thing that was really powerful last night was we were winding down the ceremony, and I see this elderly gentleman walking up, and I go over and introduce myself and start talking to him, and he's a World War II vet. And all of a sudden, we strike up this conversation, and he has a patch that's on display at the center. And it was just like, wow. And so we got talking to him, and we're going to, hopefully capture his history, because he hadn't given an oral history before or even donated anything. This patch that we have was in a bar in Superior that he gave in the 40s. And it was preserved forever. And then we've had this patch on this display for the last 10 years. And then he comes in and says, yeah, that's my patch.
That's pretty cool. Say, we have about one more minute. I understand there's some new tours coming up this summer, and also a big event for July 4th.
Yeah, we have lots of stuff happening in the center. We're adding 2 new tours to the center. We always get these very specific questions about the airplane and the tank that we have. So we figured, let's turn it into a specialty tour. And so we're going to have students, high school students, lead these tours. People will get the detailed information on the plane and the tank. The hook on it is that they get to see inside the cockpit of the P-38, and so we're hoping people will get to enjoy that if they haven't seen that part of the center. And then on July 4th, we're bringing back our living history reenactors, and we're bringing back these gentlemen that portray the presidents of Mount Rushmore, and they're going to give presentations on July 4th at 1:30.
Wow. And you also have the Cool Stuff tour.
Yep, and that's the other tour. So that's our behind-the-scenes tour of the center, the stuff that's not on display. And we came up with this funny name of the Cool Stuff, because it's all cool, but people don't get to see it.
Sure.
So that's a behind-the-scenes that we're going to get to show people, and hopefully give them a different experience with the center.
All right, Hayes, thank you so much for coming in and sharing some insights with us this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Greatest news story in 1944. D-Day, H hour. That fateful moment for which the whole world held its breath. But in the night hours of D-Day -1, long before these first assault boats nosed onto the beach. American fighting men, troop carriers, paratroops, airborne infantry, and glidermen were already there. This picture is a small tribute to those men, living and dead, who went in before H hour on D-Day, 5 hours ahead of the main force, to start the destruction of Fortress Europe. The jump that would carry them not only across the English Channel, but across an almost solid wall of steel and iron and guns and ruthless, determined men, trained for generations in the art of death and destruction. But impregnable as these defenses appeared, we had a plan to surmount them. The wall of fortifications stretched along the entire coast of Europe. Part of the plan called for our air forces to carry an army of paratroops and airborne infantry over this wall. The chiefs of staff wanted them dropped deep in German-held territory to establish defense areas and block the movement of the enemy reserves. Then they decided the invasion spearhead was to strike in Normandy.
Not far behind came the first bunch of gliders. It seemed forever before they hit the ground. They were like clay pigeons for the German snipers. The glider pilots really had their hands full bringing those babies down in the dark that way. There were darn few signal lights to help them find their way.
Yes, their mission had been successful. But this down payment on freedom ran very high. These broken wings served the highest purpose. They carried an army into Normandy. An army which spearheaded the Allied invasion, carried the fight for freedom right to the front door of those who had challenged it. A ring of steel and iron and guns and determined free men was closing in. Months and miles of battle lay ahead, but D-Day -1 was the beginning.
The school year is wrapping up, but that doesn't mean educational opportunities are over. The unique STARBASE program, Duluth, housed at Air National Guard headquarters, has summer programs to supplement their school year instruction. STARBASE is an immersive STEM learning environment that teaches kids using real-world demonstrations. And here to tell us more is Charity Rupp, Director of STARBASE Duluth. Lucas Mistelske is the chair of STARBASE Duluth's advisory board, and Katie Lassi is an instructor with the STARBASE program. Thanks to all three of you for being here. And Charity, how did STARBASE get its start here in Duluth, and how does it affect students?
STARBASE actually began in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1993. And while they are serving a great deal of students throughout the year, they wanted their reach to go further. So they were looking for opportunities in greater Minnesota to expand the program, and that's how they determined the location for Duluth. And Duluth has so many STEM industries here that it really is the perfect backdrop to have our program.
Mm-hmm. Can you give just a little bit of oversight for people who might not be familiar with it about what STARBASE actually is?
Sure. STARBASE's mission is to inspire and educate youth in STEM, which STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And the reason for that is just really trying to look at gaps in STEM education. Students learn in a very traditional way in their classrooms, but at STARBASE they learn in a very untraditional manner by being the engineers and scientists and actually doing their experimentation and activities.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to ask Lucas, is STARBASE an educational program that takes place for the kids after the traditional day of school at their schools, and then they come someplace else for classes? How does that operate?
Yeah, so the way that the STARBASE program is working right now, the students actually take a week out of their time during the school year and come to the program.
I see.
hosted at the 148th Fighter Wing. So they get to immerse themselves in this technology-rich environment, which really helps them inspire their creativity and really be focused and engaged with the technology and the teachers. And it's a wonderful program. When you step in that classroom and the smiles on the kids' faces and the way that they engage with each other, it's unparalleled.
Katie, you're there with the students as an instructor. Talk about what a session or a day might look like for these kids and what some of the activities are that really capture their imagination and get them engaged.
It's hard to say what a typical day at STARBASE is like. Every day is different, but students can expect to have at least one engineering challenge where they're designing the solution to a problem that we give them. They can expect to have a chemistry lesson where we do something like chromatography, or we use endothermic, exothermic, warm-up, cool-down kind of experiments where they can actually feel the chemistry or see the chemistry happening. They'll do something like programming robots for at least about an hour a day or so. They program robots to do certain tasks for them. And then the other thing they can expect during a typical day would be doing something with CAD software, computer-aided design, where they actually get to assemble and design things on their own.
So it sounds very futuristic and almost sci-fi in terms of the things that they're working on.
Yeah, a lot of it is tied to space or things that might be going on in the industries, aviation and technology. Those are all great examples of things that we try to pinpoint, and then we tie it all to a storyline so that the students feel that they are accomplishing a task to an end goal, essentially.
So Lucas, are there industries then that actually would be interested in hiring later on students who have had STARBASE education?
Yeah, that's a huge benefit down the road, right?
What kind of industries?
Yeah, great question. So really STEM STEM is really focused, as Charity mentioned, on the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But if you look at what northern Minnesota, the future of our economy is really based on, is all of those areas with our energy economy and our technology-based economy and healthcare and all of these data analytics type positions that are out there, robotics. The future is really in STEM for education. And these industries are often underserved in rural parts of communities around the country. So having a program like STARBASE Minnesota here in Duluth, focusing on helping younger students have that spark, that ignition, that excitement early on in their education process, I think really helps drive the future of where they move into as far as workforce development.
Now, why is it located on a military base? What's the connection with the 148th Fighter Wing? Are the personnel involved in the training, or what is that partnership?
The program is a Department of Defense program, and it's a national program. So we have the benefit of having the partnership of the military in order to house our program. So then all of the funds that we receive for the program can go directly to enhancing the program, the technology, and all of that innovation. And then the military just provides a really inspirational backdrop. We have jets coming and going that the students are exposed to, and there's a lot of STEM careers that exist in the military as well too. So we can expose the students to those by inviting members of the Guard into the classrooms to either be a speaker or to assist with some of our activities.
And do business people like yourself get involved in kind of shaping the curriculum at all, or the skill sets that you see might be needed coming down the road?
Sure. So we really leave the curriculum development up to the experts, but we help with understanding what the business community needs are, right? So what does the future look like as far as workforce development, or where do the students really come into play down the road, or what other STEM type curriculum is there out in the community that we can help connect with. But for the most part, we help support the curriculum that's there by adding kind of that real world flavor to not just a classroom exercise or not just an example, but we try to support the programming with here's what's happening with the real world and support from that end.
So Katie, how would a family apply for this education, STARBASE education, and what kind of limitations would there be as far as age groups go for their students?
So for our summer program, families can apply by going to our website. I might turn that over to Charity a little bit more because I'm more in the education aspects of it. But it is any student going into 4th, 5th, or 6th grade. Do you want to answer the registration?
And during the school year, we serve primarily just 5th grade students. So any student in the Duluth and most of the surrounding areas will have the opportunity as they're coming up through their schools once they hit the 5th grade level.
What kind of questions might a family have of your organization?
They might wonder why this is different. You know, they receive math and they receive science in school,
Sure.
but why is STARBASE different? And I would have to say that STARBASE is next level STEM. They're using technology such as the CAD program that Katie referenced that real engineers are using. We don't change the program, we don't modify it. They're using the actual technology that an engineer would, or the engineers at NASA use, actually. They use the same program we do. So it's something that the students won't be exposed to in their normal classrooms. They usually don't have the opportunity to experience the technology that we can provide for them.
Katie, why is 5th grade a good level to kind of start introducing these concepts to kids?
Yeah, that is a great question. 5th grade, in a lot of studies that have gone through educational pedagogy and students' views of the world, there was actually a study that was released recently that 5th grade is the turning point for when students stop seeing scientists as people and more so as men. So that study really showed me that, like, wow, this is important what we're doing. But on top of that, 5th grade is where you can really start to get that spark in science. They've identified that 6th grade is actually where most students stop participating in the sciences, or the students that are going to stop participating do stop participating. So it's just a way to help us carry that spark through, to introduce students to new concepts too. What is an engineer? If you had to define what an engineer was, could you do it? And then do you know all the different types of engineers, from biomedical to electrical to mechanical and different things like that? So just showing them the world that's out there.
Any examples from the classroom that maybe occurred to you that you saw somebody who just really connected with what was happening, or it had a life-changing moment?
Yeah, it's almost every single week where students are like, I had no idea this was out there. For me, it's being a teacher, seeing the teacher's response to their students is what really shows me and really excites me. We've had multiple teachers who on the last day cried and said, I didn't know that this was my student. I didn't know that my student was capable of this kind of stuff, and I've never seen this inspiration or behavior in them.
So do the kids come to you with a great deal of excitement, or is there a bit of trepidation?
Both and both. So we'll have kids that walk into the classroom and just go, oh, wow, and they're just starstruck by the robots and 3D printing and stuff. And we have other students who are just very hesitant. This is a new place, this is a new person, do I really trust her? It's hard to not win kids over with robots.
A lot of hands-on?
Like that, though. Oh, absolutely. It's all hands-on. Inquiry-based learning is our main objective.
Sounds exciting. Thank you very much. We have to run. Appreciate all three of you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the business news from our friends at Business North. Sean Nielsen has been selected to succeed Cirrus Aircraft co-founder Dale Klapmeyer as its next CEO. Nielsen has held senior leadership roles at a range of global world-class organizations, including Tesla Motors and Bang & Olufsen. Current co-founder and CEO Dale Klapmeyer will transition into a senior advisory role with Cirrus. Klapmeyer, a National Aviation Hall of Famer, said Cirrus has a bright future, noting, "We are fortunate to have someone of his caliber and experience to lead us into the next era of growth."
Commercial truck drivers transport more than 175 million tons of goods originating in Wisconsin. According to the Wisconsin Transportation Center, over 31,000 people are employed in Wisconsin as truck drivers, Yet this is not enough to fill the growing need. And the Badger State has a shortage of not only truck drivers who are delivering the goods, but also the skilled diesel technicians who can repair commercial vehicles. Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College recently launched 2 programs to address these labor shortages. Diesel equipment technician and truck driving are now accepting students for upcoming classes.
The Minnesota Court of Appeals on Monday reversed the State Public Utility Commission's approval of an environmental review for the Line 3 oil pipeline replacement project. The court ruled the review does not adequately address the potential impact of a spill in the Lake Superior watershed. The PUC approved Enbridge Energy's plan to replace its aging Line 3 oil pipeline last June. Line 3 has been transporting oil across northern Minnesota from Alberta, Canada, since the 1960s. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
If you have a comment on our show, call now. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdsc.org. And you can stay up to date on your favorite PBS programs by visiting our website, where you will also find news about the station and upcoming events. And Julie, speaking of activities, plenty of activities around the weekend, around the area this weekend, and it looks like the weather should be pretty decent.
It should be very nice if you want to get out and enjoy some of those activities, or maybe just get out and garden or mow your lawn. It's beautiful.
Take a nap. For Julie and the crew at Almanac North, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody, and be kind.